ATP, what it do with your boy Clay Moraine? Back at you guys with another one, man. Salute to all my subscribers. I appreciate the support. Excuse me. I appreciate the support. If this is your first time tapping into the content, I do invite you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit your bell icon as well, so you are getting alerts when all this content is dropping. Guys, thumbs up for the video. Let's get in the algorithm where it needs to be, and let's jump right into it. Errol Spence Jr. taps into the social media space via Instagram, showing himself and his family getting it together. Looks like he's in great shape, great spirits, but still not quite there, ready to make his return to the boxing space as the fans are moving around, speaking on being teased and saying, come on, champ, it's time for you to return. The game needs you to come back. So why isn't Errol Spence coming back? Guys, I don't need to take you down memory lane, but I'll do a real quick recap. Errol Spence Jr., a face of the PBC, maybe even was the actual face of the PBC at one point or another on his road to chasing down strap seizing to be undisputed, had a outside of the ring lifestyle that didn't coincide with the in the ring lifestyle. And it ultimately ended up culminating in a horrible accident, almost ended his career, almost took his life, but ultimately was able to make a comeback from a horrific accident and continue back onto his campaign to be undisputed as he was unifying titles, fighting the Yordenis Ugas fight and a Danny Garcia fight, coming back and seemed to be back like he never left. Ultimately, the big test for the final showdown with the big boss, Terrence Crawford, bringing that WBO title, being the only piece of jewelry he was missing to hit that legacy mark and be a undisputed champion in the welterweight division, ended in a horrible way as Terrence Crawford was able to just dominate that version of Errol Spence that came in the ring that night. Now, I say that version because I'll be honest. And look, I'm a Terrence Bud Crawford fan, right? But without a doubt, Errol Spence being in a high-speed accident in a convertible sports car going well over 100 miles an hour, being thrown out of the vehicle, physically body hitting the pavement, rolling, and lost all his teeth. And those things, it's hard to say that those things won't leave like a permanent stain on your frame, right? On your body. And one might say that Errol Spence was never quite 100% on his return from that accident. But look, it is what it is, right? On the night of the night of the fight between him and Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence looked a little out of it. Rumors circulating about potential injuries going into the fight, potential bad weight cuts, potentially on maybe some pain medications or things of that nature. Who knows, right? And boxing is not a place that's very, it doesn't empathize with excuses too much. So that being said, pretty much this was about 2 years ago. Errol Spence never really quite, or never did really figure out how his return was going to be, right? This on the back end of the PBC separating themselves from Showtime pretty much getting out of the boxing business completely, the PBC ushering a new situation with Amazon Prime, where from my understanding, there were new contracts that were being renegotiated between the PBC and a lot of the fighters that were there. One of them possibly being Errol Spence Jr. Gervonta Tank Davis was another one. Maybe even a David Benavidez. Canelo Alvarez was definitely part of that situation. And I don't know. It's like the fighters never quite returned with this whole Showtime deal. Now, I don't want to speculate too much, but I'll say this. Most of the time, from my understanding, boxers are incentivized to be in the ring by a few things. One of them being what us as fans would like them to be motivated by, which is legacy, of course, right? Strap season, putting themselves in the history books, becoming Hall of Fame fighters by doing great things, right? Challenging themselves, daring to be great. That's one motivation. But I think the other motivation has always been understood. The elephant in the room has always been the prize fighting aspect of the game, right? In other words, These fighters are here to make life-changing money, to change their family and set themselves up for life, as they are putting their lives on the line in the ring, taking lives off of their lifespan, getting punched on, especially in fights like what Errol Spence went through with Terrence Crawford. These fights take away years off your life, right? And that's always going to be part of the big picture when we talk about why a fighter is in the ring or why a fighter may not be in the ring. Now, take that for what you want to take it for, but without the incentive, why be in the ring? You know, a fighter in Errol Spence's position has earned a lot of money, taken a lot of abuse in his last fight, not including, and of course, listen, we're not even including the car accident, which probably took years off of his boxing career, but that last fight alone was an accident within itself. For him to return into the ring, the incentive would have to be clear, right? Last time we saw Errol Spence Jr. in the ring, he was in the ring across from Sebastian Fundora after Sebastian Fundora had just arguably upset Tim Tszyu and became a unified champion in the junior middleweight division, or 154-pound weight class division, or super welterweight division, however you want to call it. Errol Spence came inside of the ring and issued a challenge to Sebastian Fundora, basically making his return or ushering in what people saw as was going to be his big return against Sebastian Fundora. But funny enough, at the end of the Terrence Crawford fight, Errol Spence Jr. had a rematch clause that he had activated to fight Terrence Crawford. This held up a lot of the work going on in the welterweight division, as Terrence Crawford was waiting on the actual activated rematch clause, right, to be made whole, right? Let's see when we're going to schedule this fight. It never quite happened, to the point to where Errol Spence ultimately walked away from the fight, setting Terrence Crawford free to go and find his own fights to be made. And funny enough, a little bit of time passed and Errol Spence was back in the hunt for a fight, and said he'd be in Vegas to go ahead and get the winner between Tim Tszyu and Sebastian Fundora. Walked in the ring. This manifested into a big nothing burger, as Errol Spence went through surgeries and different things were going on. He went through a messy split up with Derek James. We never found out who his new coach or trainer was going to be. And the fight never was able to manifest between him and Sebastian Fundora. Now, here we are in a present moment in time. All this time has passed by, and rumors have circulated between fights between him and Sebastian Fundora, fights between him and Keith Thurman. I even heard rumors of him coming back, going to 160, potentially fighting maybe a Erislandy Lara or things of that nature. But we never could quite get our finger on what Errol Spence was going to do. But he's always kept the space right there on the edge of knowing that they can anticipate a return at some point in time, that he will be back. The question is, when will he be back? And the longer Errol Spence stays out of the ring, you'd have to say to yourself, there's probably a good chance that he won't return the longer he waits, right? You don't play boxing. Where I sit personally with Errol Spence Jr. is, listen, if he wasn't to return, I'd be okay with that. I think he had a pretty decent career. Listen, he tried at greatness. He was a unified 3-belt unified champion in the welterweight division. With all the adversity he's faced, with the accident, things of that nature, him retiring wouldn't shock me, and nor do I think it would hurt his legacy. I think there's a good chance he may still be a Hall of Fame fighter, right? But at the same time, if he is going to return sooner rather than later, would make sense to me. The longer you stay out of the ring, the longer you stay out of a fight camp, right? The longer you stay out of the discipline of staying inside of a certain weight and eating right and living that lifestyle, the harder it's going to be to transition back into it. So we have to see what incentive, what boxes does Errol Spence Jr. need to be checked in order for him to return to the boxing space. Now, he's made a lot of money throughout his career. In his last fight in particular, probably made his biggest payday, which I heard rumors of north of $20 million, right? Somewhere in the range of $25 million. I don't know his personal financial business, but this is what the rumor in the streets are. So for him to return back in the ring, you'd have to think that his purse would have to, somewhat make sense. in comparison to what he was last paid. Not to say that he needs to get paid $25 or $20 million, but whatever the number is, it would have to be significant enough for him to return into the ring. And what dance partner does Errol Spence Jr. need standing across from him to justify a payday that makes sense for Errol Spence Jr.? Legacy, all those things, those are easy for Errol Spence. But if he's going to get in the ring at this point and put his life on the line, I'm sure it needs to be worth it. The question is, can the PBC, and only mention them because from my understanding, this is the banner he fights under, can the PBC put together a fight that makes sense, and not only put a fight together that makes sense, but put a purse together that makes sense for Errol Spence Jr.? Outside of that, why? What's the incentive for Errol Spence Jr. to return to the ring? I don't know. It is what it is, just food for thought. Guys, put it in the comment section. Let me know, what do you think the holdup is? What is holding Errol Spence Jr. from returning? Is it the dance partner? Is it the payday? Is it injuries? Is he still dealing with injuries from the last fight with Terrence Crawford or the accident? Is he just physically not ready? Is he mentally not ready? Let me know what you think in the comment section. Guys, thank you again for watching the video. Once again, if this is your first time tapping into content, I am going to invite you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Do that. Hit the thumbs up as well. And for sure, remember to hit the notification, the bell icon next to your subscribe. Right next to that area, there should be a notification bell. Hit that as well so you are getting notified when these videos are dropping. Until the next one, it's your boy Claymore Rain. This is ATP Combat Media Show. And at this point, we out.